Hey everyone, I recently took a week off, and throughout that week I worked a little bit on my writing and my creativity and started making some plans for the future. And I thought I would talk a little bit about that because I have started work on other projects. I've talked about this a little bit. Of course, I love creating stuff. I love writing new stuff. I love creating new books in general. So this is a very typical project for me, or a behavior for me, is to go out and try to always make something new, even as I'm trying to sell stuff that I've already made. That's just typical for me. And I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about my outlining process and maybe a little bit about my upcoming project, which is essentially a drama between this gang of boys who grew up together and are now fighting due to their different paths in life. That's my that's the general gist of it, and I'm very, very excited at seeing this develop. And I haven't started writing the book itself properly yet. I haven't really drafted it, but I have begun work on the outline. I'm coming up with all this great stuff, all these great situations, creating these characters, creating the general concept, outlining it, right? It's not a draft of the novel itself, it's an outline of what happens, who the characters are, what's going on, what the conflict is, how it's resolved, the themes, stuff like that. There's all this, everything comes together in this, in this. I'm actually putting everything I've been thinking about for this book, in this outline. And I've already come up with lots of really neat ideas that I wasn't even actively thinking about, during the brainstorming phase. I'm finding more and more as I get older and I start refining my technique more, start learning this. I find it more and more that it's important to write stuff down as soon as you have these ideas, because if you're actively working on all these projects at once, you are going to forget stuff. I think that's one of the things with this one, is that I've had this idea for a while now. I've been thinking about it. I had a general idea of what happened, who the main characters are, how it plays out, what the personality of it is how it feels. But certain aspects of it sort of eluded me. For example, I did not necessarily have names for all of the characters. I had a general idea of what happened with these characters, but it was details ages, names, backgrounds, the history between them. There were things like that needed a bit more fleshing out, and some aspects were there from the beginning, but to really make them feel like real people, or to make them appealing, it takes a little bit more than that. So I have been drafting primarily about what their relationship is and why exactly this is such an issue for them, right? Why this is such a major change in their lives, and why they're kind of terrified about what's going on. It's very, 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 very exciting, or very, very fun. That's another thing I want to note when it comes to this creation product. I'm going into this idea that I've had for a while, that I was really, really excited about. I am not as excited about going into this one. That's the thing I've been noticing, is that for my first few projects, I was ecstatic when I was going through the creation project. I was going to make something great. I was going to make something exciting. I was going to become really, really successful off of this. And needless to say, that didn't happen. Or I did make something good, but I haven't become super successful off of those things yet. That's the way I'd like to put it. Those things. I had this. the more and more I created stuff, like the more realistic my expectations for how things would play out more. I began to be more aware of my limitations, of what like I would struggle with, what I like to do, what my abilities are, what I could reasonably expect from my output, and as a result, I became less and less excited about what I was doing, but more and more focused on how to make the project as good as it possibly could be. That's the major thing here, is that like I feel like it's becoming more and more of a routine. It's kind of losing its downright excitement factor to it. Like it's not like this great new thing to me anymore, but it's still very exciting in its own right. I think that's I think that really needs to be said, is that like I'm still very much enthusiastic about this. I'm just expressing it somewhat differently, or feeling it somewhat differently. And in fact, I think this has done nothing but benefit me from the technical side. Like, actually working on this project, planning it, and just I feel every time I finish a book and every time I start another one, I feel how much better I've gotten from from a creative standpoint. Like I refine certain things, I fix certain things, I think about what I don't like from the older books and like start adjusting those. I'm always doing something different. I'm always trying to like make things tighter, better, more appealing. There's all this stuff going on, and I think all of that is just, it's part of the process. Like it's part of like developing a skill, becoming good at it, and eventually becoming successful at it. And that's how I view this situation as a whole. I am improving all the time, and that alone is very, very exciting to me.